Have you ever been unexpectedly called out by someone? You thought everything was fine, but then they just blew your mind. They blew everything up. They accused you of something, or they said something that you did not expect coming. Have you ever been unexpectedly called out? I want to talk about that today in our midweek message. We've been going through the letters to the churches in Revelation chapter 2 and 3. We're calling this series Letters from Heaven. And this Sunday, we would be scheduled to do the letter to the church of Thyatira. But this letter has some explicit content. It has some content not necessarily appropriate for the ears of children. And this Sunday, we're doing a drive-in service. And in fact, all of our services, we really want to be family friendly right now. We're encouraging every house to become a house of worship and gather and worship at home. So we're going to skip the letter to the church of Thyatira, and instead you're getting a midweek message from me on this letter. So we find it in Revelation chapter 2, verse 18, and I want you to just listen here, and you'll understand maybe why we're not going to do it in a setting where all the kids there, because parents, I'm just saving you from some awkward conversations with 5-year-olds, all right? So it says this: to the angel of the church in Thyatira write, these are the words of the Son of God, whose eyes are like blazing fire, whose feet are like burnished bronze. I know your deeds, your love, and your faith. Your service and your perseverance, and that you're now doing more than you did at first. Well, that's awesome. Good start to the letter. They got to be thinking, Jesus really thinks we're doing an awesome job. But then comes the moment where you get unexpectedly called out, where you just get wrecked by someone. You know how it's always like this, like someone wants to talk to you about something you did wrong, and they start and they give you 3 good things, and they put the bad thing in, and then maybe 3 good things at the end. Well, Jesus does this here. Verse 20, nevertheless, I have this against you. You tolerate that woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophet, and by her teaching she misleads my servants into sexual immorality and the eating of food sacrificed to idols. I have given her time to repent of her immorality, but she is unwilling. So I will cast her on a bed of suffering, and I will make those who commit adultery with her suffer intensely until they repent of their ways. And I will strike her children dead, and then all the churches will know that I am he who searches the hearts and minds, and I will repay each of you according to your deeds. So we got some allegations here, some allegations of sexual immorality and adultery. And then Jesus says, now I say to the rest of you in Thyatira, you who do not hold to her teaching and have not learned Satan's so-called deep secrets, I will not impose on you any other burden except to hold on to what you have until I come. To the one who is victorious and does my will to the end, I will give authority over the nations. That one will rule them with an iron scepter and will dash them to pieces like pottery. Just as I have received authority from my Father, I will also give that one the morning star. Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. I have this against you. Jesus here speaks to them, and the churches probably thinks they're doing really well. Everything's going good. We're loving Jesus. We're doing all these good things in our community. And Jesus says, no, I have this against you. Remember years ago, at another church I was pastoring, I was at a retreat with our group of elders. And we were gathering together one night and just talking about the direction of the church. And one of the elders, an older gentleman, said, Steve, I have to share something with you. And he began to share with me, unexpectedly calling me out on something that I didn't know about, that I wasn't expecting. In fact, the whole thing was that sometimes on Sunday mornings I'm so focused on the things I got to get done and get things set up for our worship team and different things that I have to do, that sometimes I walk by people in the hallway without saying hi. Which, yeah, I understand that could be considered rude, and so I started working on it afterwards. But out of like nowhere, I get called out in front of all like this group of elders about it. So I feel like as they get this letter, that's what they're feeling like. Oh man, we just got called out by Jesus. The church is surprised, and Jesus says, you're being led astray by Jezebel. Now, Jezebel probably is an actual person in Thyatira. Jezebel is a reference back to 1 Kings 16 through 21 in the Old Testament. Jezebel is the wife of the evil king of Israel named Ahab. All right, Ahab and Jezebel. Bad couple, and Jezebel leads Israel astray, leads them to worship other gods. She's an evil person. She's so mean, she's so terrifying that even mighty prophets like Elijah are terrified of Jezebel. In fact, Elijah comes to a place where he's borderline suicidal because he's so afraid of Jezebel. That's how evil she is. Eventually, she comes to her demise. But here in Thyatira, they've been led astray by Jezebel-like teaching, by Jezebel-like people who are leading them probably into some sexual practices that were wrong, that were like the culture of their day, where they'd gather together in bathhouses and do all sorts of awful things, or they would practice their religion by basically having sex with everyone and anyone that they could. And so this is happening, but there's also this spiritual adultery happening. They're basically cheating on God, and God's like, guys, I don't want to be cheated on. I don't want to be cheated on. And it probably just started out with some small compromises along the way, but eventually became something very big. I mean, that's how affairs often start. There's a small compromise, just this emotional attachment that begins, and we're just spending this time together. I'm going to hide this text message or hide this thing that we did, and then eventually it becomes a full-blown adultery. And that's what's happened between this church, or many of the people in it, and between God. But God here calls them out, and he calls them out with love. See, the truth is today we still get seduced by Jezebels. We get seduced by the ways of this world, and we often cheat on God. We often commit spiritual adultery against him. But the good news is that God never gives up on us. He's always pursuing us. He is always faithful, even when we are faithless. And we always have a chance to come home. We always have a chance to return to him, to return to the one who has authority over all the nations. And he wants to invite us in, as he shares at the end of this letter, into that authority. He's the morning star. He's the one that shines brightly in the world, and he wants us to have a relationship with him, to leave the ways of Jezebel, to leave the ways of our world, and to embrace the ways of relationship with Jesus in faithfulness, in love, and fidelity. And that's the beautiful vision of these letters from heaven, is that Jesus is calling us, even today, removed by 2,000 years and 6,000 miles from these original letters. He's still calling us into that same relationship. So may you choose Jesus today. May you remain faithful to him, and may you listen when you are unexpectedly called out.